Hi, and welcome to Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, a podcast from the Magdalen House, a recovery community for alcoholism. We're a 501c3 nonprofit in Dallas, Texas, lovingly known by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we drop a new episode from one of our 3 podcast series. In Recovered, a recovered alcoholic from our community sits down and shares their story, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I'm your host, Laura Wilson, a recovered alcoholic and the communications manager here at Maggie's. Whether you're in recovery, curious about sobriety, or here to support someone you care about, we're really glad you're tuning in. Thanks for being here. Hello, podcast listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics. Today, we have in the chair Mickey Corona. So, Mickey, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Glad you're here, too. Very excited to hear more about your story. I have seen you since, literally your second or third day in our men's house at the First Step program and seen you progress in your recovery for over a year now.
Yeah, almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's approaching a year and a half, so excited about that.
That's so great. So tell me a little bit, how did you get introduced to alcohol? What was your first experience with it like?
Well, the crazy thing for me, like in my family, like alcoholism wasn't a thing. Not even just alcoholism, just drinking.
Right.
I remember a handful of times my dad drank like on a special occasion or maybe on a Friday, but it never was alcohol was never a staple in our family. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't anything. I remember my dad had this weird term, like he would say, it was every now and then, it was when alcohol wasn't readily available in every corner. He would ask my mom, "Do you want to go across tonight?" That literally meant go across the Trinity River and like get alcohol. And that was so rare. I mean, it was like, I guess maybe he had a good time at work or something. He was celebrating something, but it wasn't a struggle. Like there was it wasn't at the forefront of anybody's mind about drinking or the struggles with drinking or alcoholism or anything like that.
Right.
So as a young kid, I saw my parents drink maybe once a year, and that was maybe New Year's Eve, maybe on a 4th of July. Just wasn't part of our family. And as I got older, I would drink occasionally with coworkers, but I'm pretty certain it wasn't more than once, 2, 3 times in a year that I would ever like drink alcohol. That's just how it was. And there was a couple partying times as a younger kid where we experiment with it. Right. But it just, in my 20s and in my teenage years and in my family, it just wasn't part of it. It's not something because when I tell my story, I always tell this part as, it just wasn't very prevalent as part of my life. And it wasn't until I reached the age of 32 that I started drinking daily. Mm-hmm. So I had built this really nice life up and have a master's degree in finance. And I started working at the bank as a financial advisor when I was 18 years old. Well, I started as a teller and worked my way up through college and became a financial advisor and had built somewhat of a very successful life as that, doing advising people with their finances. And I loved it. I bought a house. I did all the things everyone does. Right. And again, like addiction wasn't even a word we use, alcoholism. You would hear alcoholism would be something you would see on an after-school special. Right. You get off of school, you come home, and you see somebody on TV struggling with it, and you just never think that that's going to be part of your journey. Right. Like, never for a minute did I ever think that was going to be part of my journey. So, I, around 32, I remember literally, this is crazy, I can remember the day that it was in mid-March. I told my partner at that time, I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you want to," the occasions that we would drink, the only drink that I didn't know what drinks were called when we would go out. But so I would always say, "I'll take a Long Island iced tea."
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I know, that's crazy. I would say, because I didn't really know drinks, but so I asked my partner, I was like, do you want to make our own Long Islands at home? And he was like, sure. So we went and got we looked it up and went and got the necessary liquors, this is an important part of the story because we got 8 different liquors. Yeah. And we did our thing, had our drinks that night, and I put them up on the fridge. And before the month was over, and I was 32 years old, before that month was over, I remember all 8 liquors were gone that were drank. That was, I don't know what happened in that month. There was nothing traumatic that happened. It was like just a thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember he came home and he looked at the refrigerator, and he was like, "Where are those liquors?" And I was proud at the time. I was like, I drank them. Like, I drank those liquors, you know, like, and so, and I don't think he thought two things of it, you know, like, I don't think he thought anything about it because I wasn't struggling. Life was going well. You know, I was still a financial advisor. To make a long story short, that was the start of it. Like, I remember, like, by that summer, so that was March of that year when I was 32. By summer, I already knew that I couldn't stop. I remember that it was just too difficult. I tried. Like, I remember I was like, and I thought I can't tell anyone. I can't tell anyone that I actually can't stop drinking this. It was a really weird feeling, something I never experienced. It was something like that clicked inside of me. The allergy was just clicked. It was started. It was ignited at that moment in my life. And
why did you feel that you couldn't tell anyone that you were struggling with it?
Because I felt like there was a thought in the back of my head that maybe this is alcoholism. Maybe. But that is a taboo word in my family because that's for other people. Right. Not for someone like me. Not someone who's educated, not for someone who's, you know, got a very good career, you know, a mini mansion and all these cars and success and friends. And that's not, you know, it seemed very taboo and it was very scary moment. During that same year, I remember there was a time I walked in the living room and I remember my hand was shaking like this. And this is so silly. You may find this silly, but my hand was shaking and it was like 10 a.m. in the morning. Right. And I walked in and I told him, I was like, look at this. What in the world is this? Like, I literally like asked him, like, what is this? This is in my 32nd year of life. Like, and he was like, he's like, I don't know. Like, literally, we just didn't know any alcoholics. We didn't know anybody that were drug addicted or anything, you know. So at that moment, this is the funny part. I said, you know, I think that's early onset Parkinson's.
My excuse was always too much caffeine.
Is that what it was? Yeah. I didn't know. I was just thinking I was having Parkinson's disease. I was like, I didn't even know what the word withdrawal meant from alcohol. You know, I didn't know at that moment. Well, you know, life went on. The first 5 years of it, I was highly functional. Yeah. And that's just because, you know, I hit it a lot. I had, God bless her, my administrative assistant at the bank. So I was a vice president. And then at one point I was an executive vice president on my own. But I had a personal administrative assistant, Nikki Warren. God bless her, because she was always having to cover for me. Yeah. You know, she was always, you know, Mickey, you have an appointment with a client, a high-profile client's over here. You know, I was missing $1 million sales because I was at home in my backyard drinking. Yeah. You know, and I remember I missed an executive meeting one time, and my boss called me, and he said, Mickey, you know, you missed the meeting we had, and I said, oh, my God. I remember exactly where I was. I was drinking just at home because I had a lot of autonomy in my job. So I could come and go as I pleased for the most part. And I thought to myself in that moment, well, first he asked me, he said, on what planet do you live on that you think it's okay to miss, you know, a meeting like that? And it was such a big meeting. It was where we all get together once a quarter. It was a big thing. And I just didn't go. Yeah. That's when I started to, I think that moment stands out because I feel like that's when things started. I saw things in my career start to unravel. Mm-hmm. I think in the moment I didn't think that, but looking back, I definitely saw that as a moment that things started to unravel for me. And so, like I said, the first 5 years I was highly functional. And it wasn't until the latter 5 years that things started to spiral out of control. And I'll tell you some key things that I learned after coming to Maggie's and after my experience with Maggie's. So that last 5 years after things started to unravel, I really had a lot of hurt and stuff for the problems that I had caused my family and my alcoholism had caused. I described my life like an onion, like a blooming onion. Like people were just peeling themselves out of my life. The only people that stayed behind to be in my life were people that enjoyed the lifestyle of the money and And then I started just doing unethical things. Like, I won't get into the crux of that, but I started doing very unethical things that to maintain my lifestyle, to continue going. And it was I was hurting people, burning bridges, and this massive spiral out of control. All the way until, and I told myself, mid 5 years, I told myself this. I said, if I could see in the horizon, if I maintained the level of drinking that I was at, that I most likely would end up homeless.
Right.
I mean, I never really believed it, but I was like, if you stay on this course, you will end up homeless. Yeah. Like I would tell myself, I wouldn't tell people that, but I would tell myself that. Then it happened. August of 2024, like I couldn't afford to pay my rent. I couldn't afford anything. I had been without a job for 3 years because I was holed up in my room drinking. My dad had moved in with me, and he was paying all the bills at my house, and he was paying for water, electric, and rent. And I was just allowing him to do that. And every bit of money that I could find, pawn, sell, or sometimes steal something, unfortunately, is part of the story, I would use that for my alcohol, But fast forward to August of 2024, and my dad was still living. He told me he was going to move out, and I asked him why. It was a very peaceful place for him to live, and he was in his mid-60s, and he was like, because I can't watch you kill yourself. I can't watch what you're doing to yourself. And so he did move out, and then there went the income, there went my stability, and August the 4th of 2024, I called my cousin. I was like, I already couldn't afford to live where I was living, but I didn't want to lose everything.
Right.
So I called my cousin and I asked her to just take over. I was like, can you just come and you can have the house, just take over my payments. You can have every bit of my furniture. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, I'll figure it out. I didn't know what that looked like for me. So I left, and I checked into a homeless shelter. I had a little tiny paid off BMW, older BMW, and right at that moment, the weird thing, I stopped drinking, right? Like, because I couldn't afford it. So I stopped. And I got delirium tremens, which it's interesting because people like to refer to delirium tremens as withdrawal symptoms. They are withdrawal, but they're really characterized by severe hallucinations, and they can be prolonged, and it can be a long period after you were drinking. And that's what happened to me. I found myself, like, I checked into a homeless shelter. I had stopped drinking. I don't even know if I had money for gas. I don't know. But I for a period of about 4 to 7 days, I really don't know how long it was. I literally, hallucinated around the city of Dallas. And I know this is going to sound funny, but I thought I was driving around with Jackie Chan, like weird stuff. I thought Richard Gere was in the car with me. Ended up, I thought Jackie Chan was teaching me how to do stunts. And I wrecked my car in between a brick wall, and I wedged it in between a brick wall and a parking garage and crawled up the sunroof just thinking I was being taught how to do stunts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that occurred. That ensued right at the beginning of me going homeless. I was in a shelter and that happened. Well, about 7 days later, I wandered the streets of Dallas aimlessly with no cell phone, no nothing, found my way back to the homeless shelter, and stayed there for about 4 months. And I quickly realized that being homeless was not for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It just wasn't. And I saw no way out because I still was drinking at the homeless shelter. I was still going out, drinking, coming back and drinking. And I'm trying to cry. I was still drinking and I still couldn't stop. And this is 10 years from when I was 32 and had started. And I still couldn't stop. And I met some unsavory people that I normally wouldn't associate with, and started being friends with them because I didn't have any friends. And so I won't give you the gruesome details, but I decided that was a time to end my life.
Right.
I was like, this is the lowest. I'm educated. I had all this. I have nothing left. I can't stop drinking. And I attempted suicide for the first time in my life. And I ended up at the hospital. And I remember this sweet lady at the hospital. Okay, she came to me. And this is going to be an interesting story because it's going to come full circle in a second. The sweet lady came to me, and she said, I was there for 82 hours. And I remember looking like Albert Einstein. My hair was really big. I had a hospital gown on. And these team of doctors would sit around me and come once a day and talk to me about what kind of life I lived now, where I was, and where I was going to go. And I remember this lady, she came and sat in front of me. She goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I was like, yeah. She was like, by this time, I'm out of my psychosis. I'm out of my alcoholism. Right. I'm clear-minded. This is 4 months after this all started, this whole journey. And she's like, "Have you ever heard of the Magdalen House?" And at that moment, I told her, I was like, no. But I knew I had $10 in my backpack, to be honest with you, and I wanted to go drink that.
Right.
I couldn't wait to get out of that hospital room to go drink. That hospital. And she was like, "Do you want to seek further help for your alcoholism?" And I was like, yeah. I just told her, yeah. But I don't know at that moment that I believed anything would help.
Right.
I don't know. I had never tried AA before. I had never tried anything. I had never been to any kind of treatment facility. I'm a very strong-willed, stubborn person. And my family would tell me, like, "You need help." And this is going to be funny, but I would always say, even sober, I would say, "Well, what are they going to tell me? Put down the drink, Mickey. Stop drinking, Mickey." I was like, what does help look like? I mean, just to tell me to stop?
Right.
In my opinion, there was no help. There was nothing anyone could do to stop me from drinking or help me with. But so I humored her and I said, "Okay, I will, I'll do it." Because I really had no options. It was either back to the homeless shelter, which I didn't want. I knew that just where it landed me. She said, "Well," I was like, "How am I going to get there?" And she said, "Well, we'll get you there." So they did. I was dropped off. I remember giving my 1-year speech. I was literally dropped off in the lawn of the Magdalen House. And I saw Darren coming down the stairs. And anyway, I was greeted. And I still don't know at that moment that I believed anything would help.
Right.
But I knew that I wanted to try something. I knew everything up to that point that I had done had not worked. And I am so grateful and thankful for that 14 days that I spent in that house and the transition to, alternate living options, to stay sober, and the transition to sober living, and now out on my own and still sober to this day. Like, it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
It's an incredible feeling. It's incredible to know. I always tell people when I bring my story, like, I'm living, walking, breathing evidence of a human that it can be done. Getting sober can be done. And these 12 steps that I learned at Maggie's truly were the guiding path for me. The resources, the people that I've met. I always tell people in my program, for Mickey, there's always God first. He's always been the one, because there's nothing I could have done humanly possible to get me from literally on August 4th of 2024, sleeping in front of the Dallas County Library with a 42 ounce in my hand and a police officer nudging me on the shoulder saying, "You can't sleep here and you can't drink that here," to where I am today.
Yeah.
With a career on my own, bills are paid, life is good, things are in order. And there's no way that I could ever have done that in my human strength. And that is the God's honest truth. There's just no way. If you're outside of my life looking in, there's just no way there's a human explanation for that. So in my program, God has always been number one. And then the community has come in second. Like, the community has been the second part of it. Like, I've stayed right in the middle of the community. Even here today, being with Maggie's doing this podcast is amazing, incredible feeling. And I look forward to it because this is, again, part of staying in the community, carrying the message to the next person. Because if an alcoholic as bad as me can do it, they can too. That's what I really believe. Like, if I asked a coworker the other day, I said, "Look," I said, "do you think the 12 steps because I work in recovery now, so I won't get into all of that, but I work in recovery now, and I work in medical detox, and I asked a coworker there, I was like, cause there are programs within that we do that they're not 12 steps. And I asked my coworker, I said, do you think someone really can get sober without the 12 steps? Or do you think, the question that I posed to him was, do you think the 12 steps would work for everyone? And he's 10 years sober. So he turns around to me and he says to me, Mickey, I believe these 12 steps can work for anyone who wants them to work for them.
Yeah.
I thought that was the most powerful response, like from anyone that I've heard so far. Like, it can work for anyone if you're willing and you want it to and you're desperate enough. That's where I found myself, when I came to Maggie's. And I remember when I reached a year, the overwhelming thought in my mind was, how do you give back to the organization that gave you your life back? How do you give back? How do you say thank you? I mean, it's almost like life and death. So I was dying, nearly dead, and now I have my life back. How do I say thank you? And the only way I knew was to work my step 12s with Maggie's. Carry that message to people coming in, to the men that are coming in that are suffering. When I started coming back to overnight at Maggie's, I instantly wanted to continue doing it. And here's the reason. I would see these men, I would look at them in their eyes, and I would see myself. And not so much the physical part of myself, but the hurt. Yeah. The pain, the suffering, the trap, the burdens that they were carrying, and not knowing if this where they were was going to work. And the only thing to this day that I wanted to do back then and want to do today is to pour my life and to pour my heart into telling them how I did it.
Right.
What worked for me, and how badly of an alcoholic I was, and that this stuff works, And so I continue to come back and to continue to work with the men in the house, and it's the reason I do it to this day. Also, sponsorship, to sponsor people coming out of the men's house and to watch them grow. What an incredible experience. That's been one of the most incredible things I've ever got to ever witness. It's almost like having a child, Of course, you're not responsible for their recovery, but you get to watch them grow. You get to watch them achieve things that they never thought possible inside of their addiction, inside of their alcoholism. But yeah, so that's in a nutshell, my experience with Maggie's and how it came to be. What it was like before, and where it's like now. And I just want to stay connected. I mean, everything that I do now is just staying connected to the people. I think that this is just Mickey's thinking. This is not specifically directly from the Big Book or anything. This is just my thinking. I think as humans, we have a herd mentality. Mm-hmm. We tend to go the direction of the people of things we want in our life. If you want something, you follow those people. I tend to stay with the people who want sobriety, like to hang in those circles, to be part of their life. And when I see them wanting to achieve and stay sober, it makes me want to do the same, and it makes me just stay doing that. But then I do know that I have to wander out of that community, and when I wander out, it's when I'm carrying the message, when I'm taking my H&Is, when I'm at work. Like I said, I work in medical detox, so I see people coming in for alcoholism all the time to detox from it. And I remember I think it was my third day in medical detox that I met a guy that was suffering from delirium tremens. He was a younger guy, he was a golfer, 26, and he was in psychosis the whole day, and he was crawling all over his room, and I was holding him the whole day. I was assigned to be with him the whole day. I wasn't in the position I am now. At the time, I was patient care person, so I just stayed with him, held him, kept lifting him up off the floor, because I remember there was no one there to do that for me. First of all, I was just crazy wandering the streets of Dallas. Yeah. Here he is in hot bed, and I knew exactly what he was experiencing. He didn't know what was going on. I didn't. When in my delirium tremens, my alcoholic psychosis, I had no idea what was going on, what was reality and what wasn't. And I just was there. And so I stay involved. I stay helping the next person and doing the next right thing. I think as humans, that's, and the book talks about it, nothing ensures immunity against that first drink than rigorous work with another alcoholic. And I live by that. I mean, I always, when I carry them out, or I talk to my friends and stuff, and I tell them, that one line, nothing ensures immunity against that first drink than rigorous work with another alcoholic. And that I understand it.
Yeah.
I understand what that means, because if you're constantly working with another alcoholic, you'll never forget where you came from.
Right.
I'm speechless right now. I mean, I wish listeners could go back to, I think of when the very first day I met you was your second or third day. And I mean, you were very engaged in the meeting and you were asking questions, I've never known your story, and hearing your story and seeing the man sitting across from me today I'm speechless. I mean, I truly am. And that's the beautiful thing about Maggie's, is just that we get to see this transformation. And yeah, I mean, that's been a big thing, is that you said that you have stayed very involved. And that was something that I always heard when I was in the Women's House in their first step program, is stay close to Maggie's, stay close to Maggie's. And so that's what I did. And, we always say that sobriety opens the door, but recovery transforms lives. Mm-hmm. You get that sobriety in that 14 days, you get that education, but recovery truly begins when you're a part of the community. And it's life-changing. Everything I have in my life today is because of the Magdalen House. Yeah. I always say First Step gave me the education, but the community is what saved my life.
Yeah. I met a girl in medical detox, and I remember she tried different methods, mm-hmm. Treatments, inpatient treatment, outpatient treatments. And she was younger. She was like, Nikki, I was her case manager there at the time, at the medical detox. And I told her, I was like, you've tried everything. What's going to be different this time? That was part of what I'm, employed to do for them, is to talk to these people. And so I told her, I was like, what are you going to do differently this time? And she was like, I've tried everything. And I looked at her, and I just identified, I knew then that, try not to cry. I just care. I care about these people. And I know the trap. I said, girl, would you do a 14-day inpatient? And I said, you're going to Maggie's. I was like, I'm going to get you there. Will you allow me to do that for you? Mm-hmm. And she said, well, tell me about it. I told her about it, my experience. And she said, okay, I can do that. I was like, okay, I'm going to get you there. And I made it my goal to get her there, because sometimes you could just identify the people that are willing and mm-hmm. desperate and at their wits' end,
right,
that need that.
Right.
And I did with her. And so I because it's where my foundation started, I know how powerful it was for me, and it works.
Yeah.
The whole structure and curriculum of Maggie's works. It's grueling. What is it, 54 meetings in 14 days?
Sure is.
I mean, it's 54 meetings. It's grueling. I mean, but at the end of the day, it worked. It worked for me.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh.
Yeah.
That it worked for me. And like I said earlier, that's priceless. So sometimes just staying in the community, I mean, that's part of it. Like, I now work in recovery. Did I ever foresee that as a career path for me? No.
Same. Yeah.
But here I am. I'm doing it. And I love it.
Yeah. I want to go back to, when you first started drinking, and you said that alcoholism and addiction, they were never terms that you knew. Where was the point that you learned what alcoholism was? Was it here at the Magdalen House, or was it in between, the homeless shelter and all the nurse asking you? Like, when did that start to click for you that maybe this isn't?
So I know we're not specifically talking about steps 1, 2, and 3, but let's talk about step 1 for a second.
Perfect.
Because I feel like this is a step 1 question for me. Like, I didn't know what the steps were. I just didn't during those first 10 years. But I'd already succumbed to that. I was an alcoholic. People were telling me my life was unmanageable, but I didn't know those terms. Like, I didn't know my life had become unmanageable. Yeah. I didn't know that. But I already knew that that I was alcoholic. I would hear the term, people would say, I think you're alcoholic, like, I think you're an alcoholic. And they would throw that term around. And for me, it was such a derogatory term. Now, I think in the past couple of years, because August 4th will signify 2 years of this whole journey, I don't see the word as a derogatory word. It's a very serious word. Alcoholism is something that we suffer with. It's a disease. It's an allergy of our bodies, and I understand that now. But I had already come into the house, like, step one for me. You know how they say you get that step right, because it's so critical to get that step right. Girl, let me tell you, that step was like that step. Yeah. Step one was a no-brainer for me, because it described my life for the past 10 years in one sentence. Yeah. It's like, so it's like, yeah, that's me. That's pretty much me. Step one is pretty much me. And but looking back to my family, I remember my mom, one day I was sitting at the table and she's like, and because we don't have alcoholics in the family, remember that.
Right.
And she told me, she said, she called me John. She called me by my middle name. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2019, and she never got to see me. She knew my life before 32 years old, sober, but after 32, she never got to see me actually sober up. I don't even know if she thought I ever would. But I remember one day she sat me down at the table and she said, just alcoholism, an alcoholic doesn't look good in society. It doesn't have it just doesn't look good. And she wasn't being mean. She was trying to open my eyes. She wasn't being hateful. She was just trying to say, you have to wake up, because it looks really bad on you. Mm-hmm. And you're living in it, and you're staying in it, and you're not getting any help. But it didn't take long after I knew I couldn't quit for me to internally believe that I was an alcoholic, and then voice that later on that I am alcoholic. That I truly know that I am. And but I think being an alcoholic, or alcoholism, is like a taboo word in society for normal people,
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, you get the eyebrow. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, They don't get it, and they never will. But yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. And, I have always heard now, especially in recovery, alcoholism is the best thing that ever happened to me. And it took me a long time to kind of understand that, because when I think of alcoholism, I think of that emotional pain that we were in. And I was like, how is that good? But, looking at my life today, I came into this program with no purpose. I mean, it sounds like you did too. Mm-hmm. And now, our greatest purpose is to, I have the ability to help other people. I have a purpose now, but it's changed who I am to my core, and, how I react to life and how I show up for other people, and looking at it. I mean, alcoholism truly is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this for me. Like, there are some key things that I don't know I can't say it's specifically alcoholism. It could be, or is also the steps. But for me, like, I'm definitely a more tender person, mm-hmm. and not as rigid, mm-hmm. in my recovery. It just came after working these steps, like, more understanding and tolerant of people and loving towards people. Those are all things we learn, working these steps. I also, man, can I just rewind this for just a second? There is one other thing I wanted to tell you, like, just a key thing I left out. Something I recently realized, and I don't know why it dawned on me in what I was saying. How I feel like AA is like, they describe some of us alcoholics as F10 tornadoes in our mm-hmm. alcoholism, right? So we look at the path of destruction behind us as like wide and vast. Mm-hmm. And in order to move forward in life, we have to clean up our side of the street, clean up our past. I don't think that it was after I worked these steps, I started more and more understanding how important that is. Because how can we be optimistic about the future if we don't work on our past? And that's exactly what Maggie's taught me and the steps taught me. But when you dig down and think about it, like, I realized through working these steps something critical about myself. Like, I won't get into it in this podcast, but I actually learned the real reason that I was drinking. Like, that led me down that path, like, to start drinking. And being so selfish and self-centered, and like I learned what it was through working these steps, and that was critical. That's the whole goal of all these steps, and working with God and working with your sponsor and working these steps is to learn what's the underlying cause. What is the what caused this?
Yeah.
And it was something that I never imagined in my life that it would be.
Yeah.
And but I got to discover that, what it was. Do this, and I think that's so important for a newcomer or somebody who's on the fence who doesn't understand what they're struggling with right now. You may not understand it now, why you're doing this, why you have that allergy, and you're not trying. In some cases, not even trying to get rid of the allergy.
Right.
But if working these steps can help you figure that out.
Yeah.
I don't know, something you said that you asked made me think about that.
Yeah. Was there any step that you, I don't know, I want to say were hesitant or were scared of, or, as you learned about alcoholism and got the education and what you needed to do, was there anything that you were hesitant about? And then how did that work out for you?
Well, like anyone else, step 4. I mean, you drag your feet because, I think the stereotypical gay guy, because I'm gay, so I think the stereotypical gay guy, they think that we're willing to talk about all of our feelings. We're willing to talk about anything and everything. For me, I don't like talking about my feelings, especially the deep down ones, the ones that hurt, or, the ones that are more meaningful, like that, cause a lot of trauma in my life. I don't like to talk about those. And so step 4, it's like anybody else. I drug my feet on them. And I remember my sponsor called me after a month of dragging my feet. And he was like, okay, I'm not trying to put too much pressure on you, but I can see that this is taking a while. Like, do you need a deadline? Do I need to put a deadline on this? Because I will. I can and will. And I was like, yeah, what is that? He was like, you got 2 weeks. He was like, I've given you a month. Like, let's get on the ball with it, And I finally did. I sat down and I did it. To this day, I'm still working step 9. I'm still doing my amends. Some take a little longer than others to do, but I'm still working it.
Yeah.
And I'm a work in progress. And I think that I always tell people, especially my sponsees, like, you're not striving to be perfect.
No.
You're not. And that's not the goal at all. Like, we're trying to make progress in life. We're trying to achieve, take things in small bites. First, we got to work these steps. We got to work them. We got to do them. We got to get down to the nitty gritty and put pen to paper, put a shovel in the mud, and we got to start working. We got to start doing this stuff. But we're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to make progress in our life.
Right.
And that's what step 4 was, is just progress. It was just led me to the next step. But I think also I was odd. I was an odd duck when it came to step 12, because it was just the opposite of what you just asked. You said, were you hesitant? Did you have,
Yeah.
Step 12, because I am naturally a people person, and I know some people are not, step 12 looks different for everyone, right? As far as like how you do your step 12, how you carry your message. I feel like not everybody's going to be running to alcoholics' apartment at midnight trying to do a 12-step, I have done that and do that, but I was more excited to start working and living in step 12 than any of them. Because I was the joy in like what I've found through this journey was just bursting out of me, and like I just wanted to help someone else.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, and I was like, give me my shovel, give me my tool belt, let me go, let me get out there, let me get on the field, with these other people and let them know that there's a way. Because for so long, I know I'm being redundant with this one statement, but for so long, I understood the trap that I was in. And when you realize that there's a way out of that maze, that a door does exist,
right?
How would a human not want to go grab as many people and take them out of that door at the end of that tunnel of that maze and get them free, help them find freedom that you found? So I was a little different. So before I was hesitant, but as the steps went on, I got more excited about it, because I thought, well, hell, something's working.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and you've been very involved with Maggie's. What would you tell somebody listening to this who'd never heard of the Magdalen House? What would you want them to know about Maggie's?
Great question. Great question. I would, if someone had never heard about Maggie's and they're looking for a solution to their problem, if they have found themselves, their life unmanageable and out of control with their drinking, I would tell them that there's an incredible place, a community of people who do care and that band together, men and women. They band together. They find hope, courage, and strength in each other. It's a community that I never thought existed on this planet, and that's God's honest truth. And it grows like roots outside of the walls of the actual physical men's and women's house, because these people go off and do their lives, and you run into them down the road. I would also tell someone, if nothing else has worked, to try it. If nothing else that you've done in your life has been something that's worked for you, just give it a chance. Because for me, every single thing that I had done in my life, for 10 years, a decade of my life, I never came up for air from drinking. This was the one thing that worked. It was the one thing that I found that worked for me. And if you're nervous about it, if you're on the fence about looking for help, seeking help, the best words of advice that I could give you, in my experience, would be to press in, just for a moment, because you know how trapped you are. Just press in and try. Give it a try. The community at the Magdalen House for men and women is so welcoming and encouraging and inviting. It's hard to feel like an outsider. It's hard to feel like you don't belong. And I will also say this is a key point. It is the very first place, because the circle of friends that I had, the circle of family that I had in my alcoholism, none of the other, I didn't know another alcoholic. I didn't hang out with, I was the type that would drink in my house by myself or with one other person that drank. I didn't know a bunch of alcoholics. So coming into the Magdalen House, I found people that were like me. That changed so much. I found people that I could identify with. Like, you did that? Secretly in the beginning, I was like, I did that too. Oh my God, I can't believe you did that. Like, I didn't think anybody else did that. Yeah. And I really was like that. I was like, yeah. Oh, you did that? I did that too. God, like I didn't think anyone had done all the crazy things that I had done over the past 10 years. I didn't think anyone would ever truly understand me. But I found at the Maggie's house a community a whole entire community of people that I can relate with, that relate with me. Mm-hmm. And we're just alike, and we're similar in that fact. I feel like alcoholism, addiction is the great equalizer.
Oh, it so is.
It's the great equalizer of people. And it doesn't matter what walk of life you came from. Alcoholism doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you're an executive. It doesn't care if you've only lived on the street your whole life. It will equalize you with other people. And when you finally found that community of people that understand, we just all connect. All of us connect. And it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah. And the best part about all of it, it's completely free. Our first step program is free. Our next step program is free. Community is free. So what does that mean to you that all of this is because, people donated?
Well, when I first came into Maggie's, I did hear that it was free. I did understand that part. I couldn't comprehend why someone would give money to help someone like me. I didn't understand it. Like, that was a very foreign idea to me. And then I came to find out, well, I understand privately funded things because I am a financial advisor. I was for 21 years. When I came to find out that Maggie's was privately funded and there were people that it meant so much to me. I just wanted to hug the necks of the people that were helping Maggie's out, that were donating and contributing to helping people have a new leash on life, because that's really what it is. Mm-hmm. But I don't think in the beginning I understood that. It was afterwards, after I went through the house and I came to understand, like, this is a free service and it's incredibly valuable, but it's not free. Not truly. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody's paying for it. But I was grateful. The gratitude in my heart was just immense. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to say that we have not gone over, or just to anybody listening, maybe if they're struggling, or anything at all? The floor is yours, or the mic is yours.
Girl, let me tell you, I'm just an open book. So I just want people to know that there's hope.
Yeah.
I felt hopeless for so long. You hear this term that there's hope, that there's freedom. But I don't know that people necessarily believe that can be for them. But it can be if you're willing to try something different, something new. And even if you've tried it before, I think willingness is the biggest key. Desperation, if you're desperate. If you're at a point in your life where you're desperate, just try it. Just try it. Because you never know. You never know the one thing you might do that could change the rest of your life. Maggie's changed the trajectory of my entire life. I couldn't be more grateful for that. I mean, that's the guy. I wish I was a billionaire. I would give more money to it, and to help it succeed.
Mickey, this has been absolutely fabulous. I mean, again, I'm still just blown away about just your transformation and your story. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces over the last year and a half, but this is the first time we've really sat down together, and I'm just like, it's crazy. I mean, it's wonderful. Yeah. It's wonderful. And if you want to get connected with Mickey, he will be at the Men's House every other Thursday, chairing the 7 p.m. meeting. Otherwise, you can get in contact with any one of our men's program coordinators, and they can, help you get in contact if you want to talk to Mickey more. So, Mickey, thank you so much for today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so fun.
Me too.
Thanks for listening to Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics. If this episode has offered hope, clarity, or comfort to you, please consider making a donation to the Magdalen House. By paying it forward, you help make sure the next alcoholic gets the same chance, completely free. You can give anytime at magdalenhouse.org. We release new episodes every first and third Wednesday, so be sure to tune in. Want to learn more or stay connected? Visit magdalenhouse.org or find us on social by searching The Magdalen House. The Magdalen House is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit in Dallas, Texas, and every program we offer is possible because people like you choose to give. Thank you for helping us change and save lives.